All right, well, good morning, everybody. Okay, so reminder that we are going to have one more bootcamp class on Tuesday, which I'll get to that in a second, but we are offering all of our current students 40% off of the next bootcamp, which starts February 27th. So if you're interested in that or wanting to do a payment plan, just let any of us know and we'll get you set up. This is good. So if you're taking February, this would not be a good one for you since it'll be too late. We have some additional upcoming classes. I think a good one for a lot of people will be conditional statements and LR, and this is before class on Tuesday. And then if you're continuing to want to do logic game stuff, Jasmine has her basic logic game class on Thursday evenings as well, which is really good.
Are you going to tape the conditional statements one? Will you record that if I can't make it to it?
Yes, I will record that one. I think
Okay,
that's I've been working on that content for a while. I think that's going to be a really good one because it's going to focus on conditional statements in logical reasoning specifically.
Yeah.
And it's recommended by Jenny. Yeah, so I like that's like what we should just call it Jenny's class.
Nicole, really quick before I forget, will you this is going to be the last class, right?
Well, I'm going to get to that in a second. Can I get to that in a second, please?
Oh, okay, sure. Go ahead.
Perfect. Okay, so we are looking to network more as we have brought on some more tutors. So I would like to offer everybody a free class if you help us spread the word. So if you refer a friend to one of our classes, they can join the class for free and you also will get a free class. If you recommend a friend for bootcamp, you can have a free class, or if you're retaking bootcamp, you can get $25 off your price. If you recommend 4 people and they sign up, you can get a free one-on-one session with me. I don't want that, like, if you don't believe in our methods or you don't like us, like, I don't want you to I don't want to con you into recommending people if you don't really recommend it. I want it to be genuine. But if it is genuine, please share about our resources with others. And then also, if you would like to write a blog post about your LSAT journey or just your experience with it or what you wish you knew, I'd also like to offer you a free class for that as well that we can put on our website. Angelica did one a while ago about like just having to retake it and how do you I forget what it was called. It was like, how do you refocus after you didn't get the score that you wanted? And I just thought that was really cool to share just different students' insights to their own experiences and trying to personalize the test. Jasmine, yes, you have your hand raised.
I was going to ask, even after boot camp, can we still use the tutoring services?
What, the rates, or what do you mean?
Are the rates still going to be like the same?
Yeah, for the first, as for like, I mean, Katie, I think is who your tutor is, and I would assume that hers is for the foreseeable future. Yeah.
Okay.
And by foreseeable future, I mean, like, if you're taking the test 5 years from now, maybe not, but okay. Yeah, like, nothing's planning on changing with that unless another tutor wants to speak up and say differently. But I think we all are pretty, yeah, great. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and just do another bootcamp class on Tuesday evening at 7. I am going to let the people that had signed up for the parallel reasoning class join it. But so at 7 to 8, we'll do the parallel reasoning and parallel flaw. And then from 8 to 8:30, or it might be 8:30 to 9, those students, we might like just kind of like dismiss those students. And then we'll kind of just do our bootcamp ending of like, hey, this is what we recommend moving forward, etc. Kind of more of a closure, if that's okay with everybody.
That's what I was going to ask about, like what you recommend we do after the boot camp, but I won't be able to attend that on Tuesday. So will that part of it be recorded as well?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and that was just so that we don't feel so rushed today. I just think it'll be better we just wanted to see what we got to and what would be the best structure. We just feel like adding that extra class would be, I wanted to do it this morning, but a lot of people were like, no, please don't do like 3 hours in one day. Or 4 hours. So that's why we moved it to Tuesday. All right. Does anybody have, the other thing is if you've enjoyed bootcamp, one thing that you can do to help us out is to rate our reviews on Google. If you've enjoyed the class, you can just search Really Grit Consulting. Maybe Katie or Jasmine, could you Google it and find the link and just for a Google review and put it in the chat? That's just like so more people can find us. We're still pretty obviously very, very small. But if you enjoyed it, like that's something that we can just offer more confidence for other people to take our bootcamp or our classes in the future, because our goal is to continue to offer extremely affordable resources to more students and hopefully bring on more tutors as well to be able to do that. All right, any questions on that? Thank you for listening to that little spiel. So today we are talking about, I'll go back to the beginning. We're talking about evaluate questions, disagree and agree questions, which typically they're disagree questions. Occasionally we'll get an agree question. Some people call these point of issue questions, if you've ever heard of that. And then we'll also talk about paradox questions at the end. I had done a free paradox class that I think was pretty good, and I have the recording of it. That's already on the website under additional resources. If you do want more, I actually think I have an additional video for all three of these on the website already, but we are recording today, so we'll continue to have these recordings too if you want to revisit them.
We're going to have access to this stuff forever, right? Like it doesn't expire with us. I
would assume yeah, I would assume I'm not planning on taking it down anytime soon.
I mean, not forever, but I mean,
yeah, I don't want to say forever and then come back and be like, you said, but yeah, as long as I would assume within the next year, it's going to be up and you'll have access to it.
Okay.
All right. So the three questions, oh, sorry, let me look at the chat. Oh, thank you for, Katie, you just sent the link for the reviews on my actual website. That just goes to me. Can you actually Google reviews and just type really great consulting and find the Google page? I can do that too in a second. Okay, so we've covered support questions, must be true, conclusion, rule, reasoning, necessary assumption, flaw, sufficient assumption, strengthen and weaken. And then today we're going to go ahead and cover paradox and evaluate, which are bottom-up questions. And then we're going to talk about the point of issue questions. And then on Tuesday, we're going to do parallel flaw and parallel reasoning. And so then we'll have all the LR questions covered, which is pretty awesome. For those, we're going to talk about this more, but for those that are not taking the test until April, don't be afraid to go back and kind of do the bootcamp videos again and drill more questions. I think you'll get a lot more by going back and drilling the original questions. Even if you watch the shorter clips of, must be true questions and then drill questions then, I think you'll even get more the second time through than you did the first time, because you're going to apply everything that you've learned thus far again on the way through. And be able to do harder questions, or maybe even just get faster. All right, so what do we know about disagree and agree questions?
The one thing that I've, sorry.
Nope, you're great, Heather.
Okay, the one thing that I know about them is that you have to make sure when, let's say if it's a disagree, you have to make sure that it's something that both people are addressing.
Yes, excellent. Do people like point of issue questions, or I just call them disagree questions?
I do.
You do? Okay, excellent. I think there's something that people struggle with until they practice them and they realize what the essence of what they're looking for. So on disagree and agree questions, I came up with some fun example question stems for us. So the statements above provide the most support for holding that Katie and Jasmine disagree about. The main point of issue is another way to look for them. Katie and Jasmine's remarks provide the most support for they disagree about. The two students are committed to disagreeing about. And then disagree here. Disagree could also be replaced with agree anywhere as well. So how we're going to approach these questions is the same as always. Read the stimulus and understand. So on the disagree questions, we're going to have two different people speaking, right? So we'll have person one and person two. Person one's going to say something, person two is going to say something. And then we're going to have a question and they're going to ask us essentially, what do they disagree about or what do they agree about? These ones, we almost treat as if they are statements, even though each person might come to their own conclusion. And you treat them as true, even if they aren't true in the real world. So if person one says all cows are green, therefore we should buy green cows. Once again, we just assume that is true because we don't really care about necessarily proving something is true or proving something is false. we're really just looking at, hey, this is what person 1 thinks, this is what person 2 thinks, and this is what we know that they have either a disagreement about or something that they're agreeing about. I will read person 1 and I'll stop and pause for a second and digest that before I go on to person 2. Okay, so as we get to the, and then once we get to the answer choices, what we want to do is we want to focus on only one person at a time. So we have our 5 answer choices. I should have just left my drawing up. We have our person 1, we have our person 2, and then we have our question and our 5 answer choices. As I go through these, I only focus on one person at a time. So I go back up and I might even reread this person 1, and I'll go through my answer choices and ask myself, does person 1 agree with this, disagree with it, or do we not know? And as Heather mentioned earlier, if we don't know, what does that mean for the answer? Come on, do you remember?
Yeah, don't we eliminate it?
Yeah, if we don't know, it's a no.
Oh, we keep it. We keep it.
No. If
No,
we
it's
don't
wrong.
know, it's a no.
Yeah, eliminate.
Yeah, eliminate. You're spot on. Yeah, if we don't know, it's a no. Because I think sometimes we're like, oh, I don't know. Well, maybe. No, if we don't know what person 1 would say about it, we get to automatically cross it off. And so on a disagree question, obviously we're looking for something that if we were going through these, and so let's say these were our answer choices, A, B, C, D, and E, and we have person 1. And let's say we go through and we're like, oh, person 1 would say yes to this. Person 1, we don't know, so we cross it off. Answer choice 3, person 1 would say yes. Answer choice 4, person 1 would say no. And answer choice 5, person 1 would say no. Well, then what we do is we consider person 2, and we just go through the answer choices once more. So for answer choice 1, if person 2 would say yes, and this is a disagree question, can this be our answer?
Yeah.
If they have to disagree? No, because they're agreeing, right? They both would
Oh,
say,
sorry, if they're agreeing now.
yes, excellent. And then so answer choice 2, we don't even have to read again because we don't know about it. For person 1, we don't know, so we just cross it off. Let's say answer choice 3, we don't know. We don't care about it, we just cross it off. And then answer choice 4, let's say that person 2 would say yes to this, they agree with it. This would be our answer in a disagree question because 1 is saying no and 1 is saying yes. And that's how we can really focus our energy towards figuring out what they specifically are disagreeing about.
I have a quick question. So do we read what both people are saying and then do the yes, no, or we just read one person, go through the answer choice and either say yes? Like,
you know
like
what? I have never thought about that before, but that's really interesting, Kamani, because I'm almost wondering if it would be easier to read just person 1, do the answer, but you would have to know, well, I guess if you saw that there were 2 people, you're pretty much going to know that it's a disagree or agree question.
Okay.
I actually want to try that because typically I read both of them. Okay. And then I go back and I reread one, I reread A, and then I do the answer choices. But honestly, it's kind of like a comparative passage. I wonder if you did
that's
the
what I was
first
thinking.
person. I would try it, honestly.
Wouldn't that be more time consuming though? You mean to read like person 1 stimulus and then read all the answers? Is that what you're saying?
I think it would save you it saves you a lot of time because you're only focusing on one. You're quicker at the answers.
Oh,
I would also give the disclaimer though that for some people it might be quicker, for some people it might be slower. So definitely try both ways and see what works for you individually.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. I if you struggle with disagree or agree questions, I would recommend doing it like this. If not, you can go like when I say struggle, like I think sometimes whenever we focus on what both people are saying, we let assumptions from one person go into like we allow that assumption to be carried over to the other person. I go a lot faster. Like when I was drilling, I would do this. Nowadays, I don't actually draw my lines and stuff, but I do go through it like this, and I'm significantly faster because I broke it down like this early on, even though I might not need to do it anymore. But Kamani's question is really interesting, and I'm going to try that. Okay, so I have a question here. So go ahead. I actually I'm so curious. I want to try Kamani's way right away. We could try it. Does anybody mind if we just try it and see what happens?
No.
Okay. Kamani, so then Kamani, can you read it for us then?
Yes. Okay. Maria. Okay. Popular music is bad art because it greatly exaggerates the role love plays in everyday life and thereby fails to represent reality accurately.
Okay. So now let's go through our answer choices and just look at for person 1, and let's ask ourselves, would Maria agree or disagree? Everyone do this on their own. Go through these answer choices and just write yes, no, or I don't know for each answer. All right. Who wants to go through these for us and what they said? Lisa, did you do the first one? A, would Maria agree or disagree that most good art creates consoling illusions?
I don't know, so I crossed it off.
Excellent. Fabulous. You're like, yes. Okay, let's go with Samach. Sam, what about B?
For that one, I thought that she would agree. And I know that she said like
Yeah, I would say that she would agree. Does everybody agree with that?
yeah.
So
I know
yes.
she said all. I wasn't sure about the all in some part, but yeah.
I think like because it says
All that some is included.
some is included. Yep, excellent.
Okay.
All right, what about C? Eamon, what did you put for C?
I thought so she agrees on that one.
Yep, I
Or
agree.
I should go with, yeah.
All right, what about D? Victoria?
I said no, she doesn't agree with this.
I agree. And E, let's go with Angelica.
So for this one, I kind of struggled because she says that it shouldn't be popular music. It should not be considered, it's bad art. So she doesn't really say if it should be considered an art form or not.
Excellent, I crossed it off. We don't know.
Yeah. Okay,
so now let's read the second one. I think so. Everyone, go ahead and read the second one on your own and go through. We only have to go through 3 answer choices this time. And just give me a reaction once you're done. That and the homework help. Everyone talked about these a little bit. Do people like evaluate questions or do we hate evaluate questions? People are like, no, don't let me do them. Okay, so why do we struggle with them, do you think? Do we struggle to know what they're asking for? Do we think all the answer choices sound good? Are the answer choices difficult? Do we know why we struggle with them? Everyone's like, no thoughts. Angelica, why do you struggle? Well, no, you have an understanding of. Jasmine, why don't you like them?
I read the stimulus and then I read the answer choices, and it's like my mind is somewhere else, and none of them match for some reason. So then I got to keep reading the stimulus, and then I just skip them sometimes.
You're like, and then I just give up. These are questions that I did not understand how to attack for the longest time. So our goal of evaluate questions is to figure out what information would do the most to either help or hurt the conclusion. So, because we're evaluating it, right? So whenever it's saying we're evaluating the argument, are we evaluating we're not evaluating it in the sense of the whole argument, right? We're evaluating that conclusion and what would be helpful in either proving or destroying the specific conclusion. So if I were going to, so this is, these are not super hard question stems. It'll say which of the following would be most useful to know in order to evaluate the argument. Usually it does have the word evaluate in it. These, I don't think these are very tricky question stems. They're not extremely common, but we're gonna think of them as either they're kind of like strengthen and weaken questions all into one. And so you'll approach them the exact same way as you have other questions where we'll read the stimulus first and find the conclusion. We can figure out what's wrong with the argument if you're able to see it. Like why does the premises not guarantee that conclusion? And then should ignore that. I don't think I deleted it. And then for our answer choices, if we know like what's wrong with it, we're going to go through these answer choices. And what I like to do is I'll show you on an answer is I actually make an answer up in my head for the question that's being asked in the answer. So if it said, for example, that all cows are green, therefore we should buy them. And one of the answers said, actually, that's not a good example. I'll just go to an actual question to show you instead of making up one. What I actually do is after I find the conclusion, I go through and for each answer choice, I actually make up an answer and ask myself, does that answer help or hurt the conclusion? And if it doesn't, it's not our answer. So this helps me focus on evaluating the actual conclusion. So let's go ahead and practice this one. So go ahead and read this argument and go ahead and find the conclusion on your own.
Sure.
Like, let me get ready.
Oh, okay. A recent study involved feeding a high salt diet to a rat colony. A few months after the experiment began, standard tests of the rat's blood pressure revealed that about 25% of the colony had normal, healthy blood pressure. About 70% of the colony had high blood pressure, and 5% of the colony had extremely high blood pressure. The conclusion from these results is that high salt diets are linked to high blood pressure in rats.
All right, so our conclusion, it's nice when it says the conclusion, right? So our conclusion is from these results is that high salt diets are linked to high blood pressure in rats. And the reason that we're saying this is because whenever we started feeding it to them, 25% had normal, 70% had high, and 5% had extremely high. What is the flaw here? Do you know, Shanice? If she's there, Shanice, are you there? Okay, if not, Jenny, are you there? Do you know what the flaw is?
I'm here, but I guess they're assuming that the salt is what caused the high blood pressure.
Yeah, so what kind of flaw is that? What do we name that?
I don't know the name of it.
Okay.
Causal?
Right. Causal, yeah.
Causal. Oh,
yeah, so you're okay. No, the fact you don't need to actually know the name necessarily to get it right. You knew it. This is a common correlation does not equal causation. Excellent. They're assuming that it's this diet that led to the high blood pressure. Okay. So how we're going to go through for these answer choices is let's go ahead and do A together is, so if I were going to do this, I would ask myself, so A says, how much more salt than is contained in the rat's normal diet was there in the high salt diet? So I would make up an answer choice for this. What if it is 100? Does that strengthen or weaken our conclusion? I don't even know it's 100 of what, but it's 100. It does nothing for it, right? Like it doesn't matter. That doesn't help us solve this flaw. That doesn't help us guarantee that it's the high salt that's causing the blood pressure, right? So I can cross that one off right away. I'm like, that does nothing. All right, what about B? All right, I want everyone go ahead and try B, C, D, and E on your own. So I want you to practice reading the answer choice, coming up with your answer, and then deciding if that helps or hurts the conclusion. Let's practice this. Let's start with B. Did the high blood pressure have any adverse health effects on those rats that developed it? How did you answer this one, Jenny? In your head, what answer did you make up?
Did the high blood pressure have any adverse? It didn't. I didn't care about that one because, did the high blood pressure?
Okay, so just to practice the skill, let's say yes. Yes,
Oh, okay.
it
So,
did have adverse health effects. Does that do anything for our conclusion?
no.
No. What if we said no to this answer choice? Does that do anything?
No.
No. And I agree with you. Like sometimes we can get to an answer and we don't have to practice actually answering them. I just want to do it now to like kind of demonstrate how we can do it.
Okay.
Okay. So C, let's go with Ashley. What did you think for this one? What percentages of natural occurring rat colonies feed on high salt diets?
I said it didn't help or hurt it.
Right, because like what if it's 1%? Does that do anything?
No.
No, what if it's 100%?
No, it still doesn't link like where it came from.
Right, and it's also so this thing where we're saying, hey, it doesn't matter if they naturally feed on high salt diets because we're saying that we're saying that we fed them this diet and these are the results. So the fact that they normally do it, that doesn't mean in their normal life, they don't have these same results. Excellent. All right, D. Ronley, what did you answer for D?
I liked this one, but this is always a trap for me because I always pick this type of answer and then I get it wrong. But
so let's say that 1% of the rats studied 1% of rats in the study, or 1% of rats in the study had high blood pressure before the study began. Does that strengthen or weaken our argument?
it weakens the argument.
Are you sure it weakens?
From these results is that high salt diets are linked to high blood pressure in rats. Okay, no, it strengthens it.
It strengthens it. If only 1% had high blood pressure before the study, then it's more likely, right, that the high salt diets are what's causing the high blood pressure, correct?
Yeah.
So what if 100%, or let's say 90% of the rats before the study had high blood pressure before the study even began? Does that strengthen or weaken our argument? Malika?
It weakens our argument.
Yeah, because that's why. How does it weaken it?
We're saying that most of these rats already had high blood pressure, so it's not the salt that is doing it.
Excellent. Does everybody see how that worked?
Yeah.
All right, and then E, have other species of rodents been used in the experiment of the same kind? What happens if we say yes to this? Yes, other rodents have been used in the same kind of study. Does that do anything?
It does nothing.
It does nothing. It's like, cool. What if we say no? No other studies have ever been, no other rodents have ever been used. Does it matter? No. So you can cross it off. Do you like this approach? Maybe this is different than how you've learned evaluate questions. This is not how I learned them, but this is what helped me with them significantly. Does anybody have any other tips that they've done on evaluate questions that they find really helpful? Or is this just it? You're like, this is it. This is all I need to know.
This is all I need to know, Nicole.
Okay, fabulous. They're fun. I think evaluate questions actually, because a lot of people don't know how to handle them because they don't find the conclusion and then they don't go through the questions and analyze the question based on the conclusion. A lot of people miss them, but you're going to notice they're actually not that hard of questions if you know what you're doing, like what the goal of them is. But I used to miss these all the time because I didn't know the goal of like what I was supposed to be doing. Everybody else love paradox questions? What? Angelica's like, no, why don't you like, okay, these are like the ultimate bottom-up question. So that means we get to bring in new information. So first, what is a paradox? Who knows what a paradox is? Angelica?
It's like where the two situations contradict one another.
Yes, it's whenever we have two, like, I like this word, proposition, or two things that are appearing to be true, but we were puzzled by how those two things could be true at the same time. So we don't need to overthink these questions at all. Think about all the different paradoxes that we know in life. So here's an example of one. My weakness is my strength. So whenever we pay attention to paradox questions, what we want to look at is, what are the two facts of the paradox? Or what are the two things that are included in it that I think are weird that they're together? So here, what would be the two facts? Or the two different principles, or the two different points? Heather?
Weakness and strength.
Weakness and strength, yes. And so whenever I then want to predict some of my answers, I say, why is one fact happening even though the other thing is happening? So why am I strong, or why am I one fact is happening even though the other one? Like, so how am I strong even though it's my weakness? Or how is my weakness helping me with my strength, or something like that? Like, how can that be? So does anybody have any predictions of what answer choice we could bring in to explain how my weakness is my strength?
My weakness is what motivates me. Like, for instance, like my children, even though they're my weakness, they make me strong.
Oh, that's a great one. Yeah. And so on the test, that would be a fabulous answer choice, because it's addressing both points of how this is your weakness, but it's also your strength. The key thing that we have to pay attention to here is our answer choices have to address both points, and our answer has to allow for both things to be true at the same time. The biggest trap answers here are ones that just focus on one side. So if we said my weak, like, it just gave an example of like why we can be weak, or if it just said why something can be strong. It has to truly focus on both answers. All right, so I have a couple of other ones that I want to practice. So go ahead and write down your explanation of how these three things can exist at the same time. So how can it be true that we save money by spending it? How can it be true that if I want to lose weight, I should eat more? And how can it be true that the more we know, the less we understand? So I'll give everybody like 3 minutes to do that. A key here is to make sure you are picking out what your two facts are before you're making your prediction. So to make sure that your answer choices are focusing on both parts. All right, let's review the first one. And then we'll give everybody a chance to grade their second and third one in case that they weren't doing it correctly. So Lisa, what were our 2 points in question 1? Or our 2 facts?
That we're saving money and we're also spending it.
Yes. How did you resolve this in your head? How did you resolve this apparent paradox?
I usually just go to, like, if you have your own business and you purchase things that are like really expensive, or like a program that you need, it helps you be more efficient, and it therefore saves you money in the long run. So
that's excellent. Like, yeah. Another one that someone said that I thought was really good was, Sam said stock. So yeah, absolutely, like retirement funds or something like that. Like you're investing money, like you're spending money to eventually save money, or you're saving money by doing that. Someone said by buying something that's on sale, something that they need when it's on sale now. So in the long run, they don't have to buy it when it's not. Or someone said buying higher quality things so that in the long run, you don't need to replace them as often. Like that, those are all excellent. Any one of those would explain the apparent paradox. All right, so this one, the second one is, if I want to lose weight, I should eat more. So Victoria, what are our 2 facts here?
Losing weight, eating more.
Awesome. Did anybody have one that they really liked here of how they resolved this?
eat more vegetables and I will lose weight.
Yeah. Someone said like before, yeah, so eating more vegetables, therefore I'll lose weight. It's not because you're necessarily eating more food, right? It's probably that you're eating more food, but you're replacing bad stuff with good things, right? Someone said, Sam, you had another really good one. She said, replacing like protein drinks or low energy food with high energy food so you can work out more. Absolutely. That's a great one. Does anybody else have a different one? Someone said, someone didn't say this, but maybe it's like, it's not like eat more often too. Like if I want to lose weight, like I should be eating more often throughout the day. Excellent. Like, you know, breaking your meals up. Great way to explain it. All right, so I think a lot of people struggled with the third one. I'm gonna give everybody 30 more seconds to edit the third one and put it in the chat, and then we'll go over this one. And so obviously our points are knowing more and understanding less. All right, we have some really awesome ones here. At first I didn't understand Kamani's, but it actually totally works. She said, being taught by bad teachers every day. So you know more because you're being taught, but you're understanding less because they're not doing a good job. That's actually fabulous. I think you took a completely different direction than most. I went more of the other route, as the same as other people, which was the more we know, so the more that we learn about something, we see how complex it is, so we understand it less. Like, think about someone that's very sheltered and lives in their own little world. Like, they think they know everything, right? Because this is all they know. Think about like a 3-year-old, right? They think they know everything. But the more we learn about life, the more complicated it gets. Or someone said very specifically, oh, Lisa had a really good one. When you know less, you can have a very good grasp of everything. But when you know more things, it's hard to understand every single thing. There's too many variables. Yeah, absolutely. And then Victoria said, the more we think we know about a subject, we can be complacent and confident to actually understand the topic at hand. I think that's, I liked where you were going. I think you're absolutely right, where it's like the more we know about it, like we can become more confident, but the more we know about it, like the more we realize how much there is that we just don't know, right? Like it's just like way too much. I think that we hear this all the time when people say like, you don't know what you don't know until you know. I think that's where this kind of comes from. Like think about the LSAT. The more we know, like people that, oh, this is great. Whenever you're first starting for the LSAT, you feel like you know it. You're like, oh yeah, it's 3 sections. It's this time, blah, blah, blah. I know what I'm doing. But then you start studying and you're like, wow, I have no idea what I'm doing. That's probably the best explanation, right? Just kidding. Okay, so now I want everybody to think of your own paradox. The reason I'm having you really work on this is because part of paradox is being able to think outside the box, being able to solve problems. So we need to be able to think on our feet. So what is a paradox in life? It can be simple. You can think of a simple one, or you can think of a more complex one. And please type them in the chat when you're done. Oh, Katie has a good one. I have to read some of these. I'm sorry. Katie says, I go to bed early, but I'm always tired. Preach. Jenny said, I'm not a bitch, but I'm bitchy. Shanice is perfect. When I get paid, I'm still broke. Yes. I love how much personalizing the test like this is perfect because it helps us like break down the barriers and it becomes less intimidating. Oh, Angelica. Yes, I am saving a lot for law school while paying a lot to get there. That's perfect. Jasmine said, as I said before, I never repeat myself. You guys are great. Okay.
I want all of these on t-shirts, just so you know.
That's what we should be, LSAT paradox or something like that. Like that's what we're known for. Anyways, so these question stems, well, some people call these explaining questions or discrepancy questions. So it'll say reconcile the discrepancy, resolve the conflict, or most helps to explain. And so that's what we're looking for. And whenever that happens, that's our cue to know that we need to predict our answers. And we do that by finding the two facts of the paradox, just like we did, and then asking ourselves, why is the one thing happening even though the other is? These are great prediction questions to just, even if you're just thinking about like, how could this be in a world? Like literally, how could this happen? And then whenever we go into the answer choices, our answer choice has to show why both things can happen at the same time. This is key. It has to be both. So often we figure out the most tricky wrong answer isn't focusing on how both things can happen at the same time. And then you can check your answer by saying, does this answer choice explain why this happens, even though this other thing is happening? All right. So go ahead and read this one. And, oh no, did I put these in the wrong order? Oh shoot, I did. Go ahead and read this one and find what the two facts are and make a prediction. All right. Malika, what are our two facts here?
Well, we have the highest ranking detectives that are good at solving crimes, but in the past 10 years, their solving rate is the same as the lowest ranking detectives.
Excellent. All right, so everyone, those are our 2 points. Our points are, hey, we have the highest ranking detectives that are the best at solving crimes, but for some reason, the average success rate of the highest ranking detectives is no higher than the lowest ranking detective. So go ahead and make a prediction now if you haven't already of how could that be? All right, and now go ahead and answer this question. Oh, it's not going to be there. Shoot. Okay. Sorry, I had it better before, but. right. I think, okay. So what I think a lot of the answer choices we had narrowed down to D and we had narrowed down to A. So if these are bottom up questions, that means that we get to bring in new information. And if we get to bring new information, do we tend to want strong or mild answer choices?
Strong.
Excellent. Jenny, you're on fire. Jenny also said that she got a -1 on a section this week. Is that true? Isn't that what you said?
Yeah, yeah.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That has to feel pretty good.
Oh, it definitely does. I was beating myself up prior to this.
All right, so let's look at A. The detectives who have the highest success rates in solving criminal cases are those that have worked as detectives the longest. Does A do anything? Does A address our two different points? No. This is just talking about those that have the highest success rates. We need to know why those with the highest success rates are over or have no better of a record than the lowest detective rates. So D says the police department generally gives the criminal cases that it expects to be the easiest to the lowest ranking detectives. How does this solve the paradox, Victoria?
This addresses why they both have similar success rates, because if they're giving them easier cases, they're more likely being able to solve them, as opposed to the highest ranking detectives where they're probably getting harder cases and it's hard for them to solve.
Excellent. That's a fabulous explanation. So on evaluate or on paradox questions, our answer choice does not have to guarantee to solve the paradox. It just has to be an explanation of what could be. And so what Victoria said, like, hey, because they're getting their easiest cases, that's probably why they're getting, solving at 50%. And that gives it a could be chance of why the highest rankest detectives, like if they have the hardest cases and they're also at 50%, it makes sense. So that was fabulous. All right, does anybody have any questions on paradox questions? All right, so we're going to break out into groups, but Katie had a thought.